What's up, everybody? I'm just going to post in the Discord that we're live. And then, yeah, we'll get into what we're doing today. Okay. Streaming, working on my game a little bit today before working on Valheim videos stuff. Later, working on some animation and player control stuff. Said stuff so many times. All right. Just making sure those links take people to the right place. Especially because YouTube can be weird sometimes. Okay. Right. Um, right, I have actually got at least my Twitch notifications, my Twitch activity feed up. Because shout out to the handful of people that have actually been following and subscribing when I've been doing these recent Cozy programming streams. I've honestly, like, I felt compelled to share it because I feel like I'm at an interesting and important part of the process, and because I've really been enjoying programming lately. But I want to do. There's all different kinds of like dev streams we want to do, but like I want to be streaming, getting real work done, and not just pretend. You know what I mean? So I have actually not been paying that much attention to like follows and stuff, but hopefully I should be able to thank some people today if they stop by. Okay. So today I'm going to be working on my game Earth and Heart. So let's just start a new teamwork session and navigate to Earth and Heart. Yeah, I won't go into detail about what Earth and Heart is. On the Owlface Games YouTube channel, there is a video where I say I'm making a game, where I sort of do a brief summary. Some details have changed since then, but only from a technical perspective in terms of the language and libraries used or whatever. I think in my initial announcement, I said I was making it in C with SDL, and now I've decided to make to change to Odin with Raylib and Micro UI. Just because I'm really enjoying working that way right now. I learned Odin recently, and basically one of the really cool things about Odin that I really love is that it vendors a small handful in the grand scheme of things of libraries that are like pretty much ubiquitous in game dev, and as well as, you know, some other stuff that's not my forte, but, you know, graphical applications in general. And yeah, so I just wanted to learn Odin, and so I obviously thought I would do something equating some sort of little tiny game engine or something game-ish to learn it. And you know, part of the Odin philosophy really is this idea of you know, not using a ton of external dependencies where you have to rely on a package manager or something. It's more, the idea is more that like Odin is a big box with everything you need in it, and everything that it doesn't have, if you need it, you either write it yourself. And of course you can use any library you want if you're willing to write the bindings yourself still. But anyway, it definitely seems clear that the idea is that it's sort of everything you need, right? And so I like the idea of everything I need to make the game comes with me wherever I go, as long as like I install the language and then that's it, as opposed to having to manage dependencies externally. And Also, I've always liked the idea of using as few dependencies as possible because, part of the point of like not using a game engine is to reduce things like that. There's lots of things I want control over. And so, previously, when I was working in C, I was using SDL, but then, you want to render a font, you want to play back sound effects. And so I was also using SDL TTF and SDL Mixer, which it's all SDL stuff, but it's still a separate thing you have to deal with as a dependency. And so through this philosophy of like just trying to like use what comes packaged with Odin, and trying to sort of like import as few things as possible that are external from the project. I ended up using Raylib just when I was learning because SDL is vendored with Odin, but SDL GTF for fonts and SDL Mixer and stuff isn't. And so there are other ways to do that, which is fine, and there's alternatives included in it. But the thing is, Raylib just has all that anyway. So it's literally just like one import for everything. And then there's also micro UI. There is one very small basic, like sub 2000 line library called micro UI. There's a C library that is also vendored. So yeah, so basically you could do everything with such a small amount of imports and dependencies and stuff. So that's why I started working that way, and I really liked it. And so now I'm doing the game that way. There's a bunch of other stuff that I don't think is really worth getting into because I'm just sort of introing this stream. That's mostly just going to be me working. It's not clear to me that anyone cares yet. Although I will probably make a video about it at some point in terms of to speak more on like why do an Odin rewrite. But in a nutshell, it's so early in the dev process that it's not going to make a difference. And the fact of the matter is, like most games, like most of the work is just like figuring out how to do specific things. And then sort of like design and ideas and stuff. And, once you've figured out how something works, doing it again, even if it is in a different language, isn't that big of a deal because you already know how it works. So, today, let's first just start out, actually, by just like running where we're at now. It's literally nothing. This is literally, mere hours into the rewrite. Not much has been done. All it's really early days. But what I've decided to focus on two things: the palette system, the importing of assets, and animation. Because I've figured out everything I need to figure out for basically the entire game already in this little external small test projects. And I think what I want actually sooner rather than later for Earth and Heart is to begin testing really early. And what I think I'm going to start testing is I think I'm just going to build like a little arena for people to test the combat, and just get feedback on that early, because it's always got the biggest thing that's takes a lot of tweaking and polishing. So I've decided to just start with like character movement and stuff like that, so we can build that as soon as possible. I'm not going to go through what I have. I just need to get to work, frankly, because I don't know how long I'm going to stream. So having said that, if I go to my to-do list in NeoVim, I've got this one to do, which is tied to a GitHub issue. Make player move according to assets.player.state. So this is where we'll load in the player. This is where we clean everything up, which you may not need to deal with. This is where I'm handling the input right now, and we're determining the state. And then this is the update event. So yeah, I'll probably rewrite all this, frankly, but I don't want to start trying to think too far ahead. So for now, let's just do let me think about this. I think I might just handle the idle stuff first. And then I guess we'll do like assets.player.frame equals assets.player.idle down. We'll definitely figure out some better ways to write this, but for now, just need to get it kind of sketched out. So now, so currently the way it works is when you release a key, whatever the last key that you released is, it sets to that idle. Okay. I guess we'll do it like this. So I hate switch statements. This all could be a switch statement, but I kind of don't want it to be. I think what we need for this is we also need to do some animation for this, don't we? So I don't think we have something to store where an animation starts. Yeah, we don't. So that's what we need. Let's at least try and keep things kind of grouped together. Yeah, so we'll go up, down, left, right. We should probably name these something to do with animation, frankly, but we'll come back to all that once it's working. Yeah, we also want to do we'll set all of these to 0 for now. Right, what we do want to open this. So I'm just going to pick where the animation starts. So for up, it's 4. In Sprite in the bottom right here, it tells you the grid value. So as long as you have your grid set up to how your cells or your tiles are set up in Engine, you can just look in the bottom left. So that's 4. Okay, so for down, we want 2. For left, we want 8. For right, oh, I've just realized something. This isn't right. Hold. Hold, please. Hang on. Deselect that. It's I have a microphone arm in the way of my keyboard here, so it's a bit weird. 176. That's what we want. So this is generally how I move things around, because you know, I don't want to mess anything up. Yeah, that's better. Back to 160. Right, so where was I? So player left, I said, was 8. And player right is 6. However, we need to save these changes now. And I need to bake these assets. Oh, wait, no. I just edited the wrong thing. I just changed how I manage my asset palette and palette system. I literally just changed like a couple of days ago, and I forgot. So to anyone that hasn't been keeping up to date, following along with the dev of the game, it has a palette system inspired by making Game Boy games. That is right, isn't it? Yep. Yeah, we should probably make sure we work from the actual source sprite files instead of the ones that have all been colorized. Otherwise, I'm going to keep making that mistake. Maybe I'll even make some kind of shortcut thinking about it. Then again, I don't know. Right, anyways, let's not get distracted. Right, so now we've got those values. One of the things we want to do is for let's say F for frame in down what plus animation length. Let me just have a quick look at something. I forget whether we did length as inclusive or not. No. Yeah, so it should be assets down assets dot player dot down plus animation length, but we can do it exclusive like that, right? Yeah, we'll do assets dot player dot frame equals F Wait, hang on. No, that's not how we're going to do it. I'm going to do if assets.player.frame plus I'm not sure now. How do I want to do this? This isn't how I want to do it. What we want is like if assets dot player dot frame plus what's the animation speed? Wait, what? Plus no, we need some way of sort of like chunking out, blocking off the different animation cells. So we need like a yeah, we need start and end of animation. As a value in this struct. Yeah. Yeah, we do. Yep. That's it. Animation start animation and well, well, yeah, if we're defining it like this and not with the whole sort of structure in line, we can actually do player dot animation, no, dot start frame. Yeah, is the animation start to begin with anyways. And then we can do animation end. Be whatever, animation start plus player dot animation length. Okay, so if assets dot player, right, so what we actually want is now is when the state is down, we can now set player dot animation start to down. Yes. And we can do animation end as it's only +1, but I think the way that we should do it is animation length -1. So we do set frame we need to kind of yeah, I think maybe we can actually do kind of one of those for loops. Right. Yeah. think maybe it's inclusive of how I've set it now, isn't it? Oh, hang on. Nope. Plus equals. Animation speed times delta time, and this needs to be yeah. But this isn't gonna work. Because it's just gonna flatten it. We need to do what if I did something like this, and then What about if we just did... Yeah. Actually, if we wrap this, nice. It worked. Yeah, that's what we want. So, right, let's just start with this before we get into the weird typecasting stuff, or more weird typecasting stuff. Okay, it's starting to look good. Okay. I think we need... How did I do this last time? Let's have a look at this, like, prototype that I did. If the frame plus the speed is less than the length, that's the beginning. Yeah. Problem is we're in a... Well, whatever. Let's try start again. I don't know why I'm shit today. This is so basic. But I'm shit today. It's probably a write-off. Yeah, let's do something else. Work on a video. If assets dot player dot frame plus let's just put that at 1 for now. What's up, Fluffy? Very impressed. I appreciate that. My programmer brain is not good today for some reason. I'm sure we can figure this out though. It's very simple. How's it going though, mate? Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, we need to do another typecast. Doesn't like this. Right. Maybe... Yeah. How can we do this then? I think last time I must have done for the frame time, or for the current frame, as a float. Current text set in array. Where is... Oh, it is. But then I probably, if I go back, did I typecast this to an int? I did. So the reason why this is a pain, just to sort of explain. So we're working on animation, right? We have the animation made physically for moving up and down, left and right, with the character right. But in the game, we want to progress each frame. Within this sprite sheet, there's actually multiple animations, right? There's up, down, left, and right. So we're trying to kind of like dice it up and say, do this bit for up, down, left, and right, etc. Right? But for each one, we obviously want to progress which frame it's looking at. In a video game, by default, the way all graphical applications work, not just video games, is if we go to, for example, where the game's actually rendered, okay. So this is actually where we're drawing the texture, right? The way it works is basically constantly every CPU cycle, everything in this list here is being drawn. Right now, this is just one item. It's just a sprite, right? So it's constantly just doing it. If we just try and just basically say like +1 to each frame in here, which is what we're actually basically doing in the update function here. Yeah, we don't need to get too deep into why this is important, but basically, technically you want the render part to only be handling the rendering, not any logic like add this number to that necessarily. So really what we're doing is we're just saying like draw the current frame here. We're not doing any logic here because Like, this is actually the main loop of like any well-structured, you know, piece of software like this, right? You want to handle the input first and then update the value. So like if you're, say, move left, you handle the input on like in there, then you update, you know, the coordinate that represents that there, and then you just render what the current coordinate is there. That's just how you logically separate things, right? But if in here, we can actually demonstrate, if we literally just did +1, right? It doesn't really do anything. And the reason for that is it's just going to be instant. You know, it's happening really fast because it's just happening every cycle, right? So that's why you create something like this called delta time. Now in Raylib, which is the framework that we use in to, you know, render graphics and handle input and stuff like that, Raylib is always a float 32, which is basically just a decimal. It's a number with decimals on it to simplify, a certain maximum amount of, you know, decimal places, but it's basically it's a number that has a decimal point, right? Raylib has this function here, get frame time. This is something that you can actually do manually, but it's like not even worth it. You might as well just use something like this to keep it simple, but it's really easy to do this. What delta time is something that exists in basically every game engine ever. You're measuring in actual time, in actual sort of microseconds, the amount of time it took to render the previous frame, right? And the reason that's important is that then if you create a speed value, like for how fast you want an animation to go or how fast you want the character to move, you can multiply the speed by the delta time in order to have the thing happen, right, at a speed that is not locked to the frame rate. So you know how sometimes in video games there was like a famous Dark Souls bug where your weapons degraded faster or slower than depending on how good the frame rate was. So if you actually had good frame rate, it degraded really quickly. If you had bad frame rate, the game was easier because the weapons would barely degrade. That's because that's what that bug was. They didn't connect it to delta time. It's not a consistent rate. Then, you know what I mean? It's just happening as fast as it can every time. So this is basically that. That's why you wouldn't just, you need to multiply by delta time. That's why delta time exists. That's easy though. The weird quirk is that everything in Raylib is basically a float with decimal places. And the only reason that's a problem is that we are wanting to go through an array of images. Like, and you know, there is no value in between. Basically, it expects an integer, something that's not a decimal place. So we're having to convert between different data types in order for this to work, which is normal, but it's sort of annoying. And it's highly, you know, because of the nature of the game that I'm working on. This is like pixel art game problems, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to actually make everything that we use here to multiply by delta time and compare by delta time a float, which is basically our current frame and our animation speed, because it's just going to make it work better. So yeah, there we go. Just move those things around a little bit. Yeah, so now maybe we just let me think about more of these values. If we're setting the frame also to many of these, even speed. I think yeah. You can make sense of lots of these as we float 32 actually. Because really, we just want to convert it to an integer when we actually are indexing in the array. So I'm actually going to put things back how they just were. I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to, I think it's just max frame, but it's worth keeping as an integer because that also indexes in an array. Texture. When do we use texture array element? Oh shit. We kinda don't. We kinda don't, but it's worth keeping a hold of in case we ever want to clear That's why that exists. This is basically for our resource manager. I'll explain that in a moment. Yeah. Yeah, so basically, size is used to generate yeah, the array of rectangles that handles the animation cells. So we want that to be an int as well. Yeah, so basically when we actually load this image into the game, right? Once you load something into memory to use as a texture like this, it goes into video memory. That's what's happening right here. And that's how you can tell, you know, basically tell Raylib to render it, right? When you don't want to use it, like if you want to draw something else on the screen, you want to unload it. For otherwise, it's just sat there. You're using up that memory for no reason, and you're just going to start filling up the video memory on the graphics card. Eventually, maybe even, you know, there's essentially a memory leak, basically. And so instead of having to manually unload everything, basically create a list basically of every texture and unload them all and then delete that array. So we're not using memory for that either. In order to know which texture belongs to that specific thing, like the character in this point, we need to know where in the array it lives, and that's what the texture array element is. Okay, so now if we go back to update and we oh, actually, before we do that, we need to go here and we need to convert this to an integer. Hang on. Yeah, it needs to be inside the square brackets. So instead, we're just making it into just a whole number there, which is where it has to be. This is like the unload unused assets data. It often feels like in Valheim. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. In that scenario, right now, because yeah, that is basically what's going on. Yeah, John or whatever his name is, or just created something similar for Valheim. But yeah, basically in this example, because we're just at the beginning of like literally drawing one thing on the screen right now, and it's just one room that I'm working with, because I'm doing a whole rewrite of the game in a different programming language. Lol. This specifically is unloading everything in order. Even if we rendered more, it would do everything. But having that data point of this texture array element here, which we set right there. This is actually a pretty cool, very simple, most basic math ever, but very cool, I think. But just by getting that anyway, to finish my point, we're actually unloading everything at the end of the game, like when the window closes. Like literally, what this is if I run it, right? If I just press escape, that's it. Like, you see there at the very last thing in the console there, it says texture, default texture unloaded successfully. That's what we just made happen. However, having this data here, texture array element, it means that if we did stop using that texture, we can choose to unload just that. But anyway, I think this is actually kind of a cool, weird thing. How I'm actually getting, finding where this texture will live in a list of things, in the list of textures, is actually, I'm just measuring basically the length of the list of textures before I add it to the list. That's it. Because whatever the length is will be what the next value is on the list. So it's kind of a funny, weird little thing. All right, so now we've changed where it's actually being rendered to an integer. We don't need all of this typecasting, where we're saying make this a float, you know. And then we can actually just let the math just do its thing without it being weird. So now, let me read this again. So if the frame plus the animation speed times delta time is less than the animation end, add the speed times the delta time. Right, but we also need to there is one other bit of logic we need to handle, which is Actually, you know what? I think we actually just need the animation. Wait, hang on, really? Oh, okay, well. This should definitely be higher, and this should be lower. It needs to be like... Okay. I'm getting a little bit confused now. Wait, hang on, no. All right, Fluff. Have a good one, mate. I'm just realising how dark it's getting on the camera. There we go. Right. I just need to think about this differently. I think we need to do like, what's up, Joey? I'm working on my game today. I'm doing a rewrite in Odin, and I'm just working on the animation system right now. We're just at the very beginning of the rewrite. Thanks for the stream though, mate. Hope you're doing good. Assets.player. Animation start. Frame. Right. What does that get us? Nice. We get in there. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Oh, what the fuck? Wait, no. This is not what I meant to do. I'm an idiot. We just need... I think maybe... could have some kind of better state management than this. Yeah. We just need to... You know, part of the issue is like handling all animations in one sprite sheet. But I do think it's the best way to do it. It's just a little more complicated, that's all. It's going to be way more efficient to just load an image per character. We just need to basically just do something really yeah, I don't think there's any way without introducing another global. Which honestly, thinking about it, could be really useful anyway. You can just add it as another part of the walking object struct. And we want something that basically says whether it started moving or not. So maybe what we do is we have it just called moving, so we can actually use it. We could actually like kind of multitask with it. If it's just called moving, it's a way of keeping track of what's moving and what's not moving, which is really good. But then we could also just like, you know, it's obviously going to be initialized as not moving, as false. But we actually, at the start of the animation cycle, before we set moving to true, we use that to set the start and end point of the animation within the cell. And then we just say that it's moving after that point. I think that's what we do. And even though it's been a bit of a faff to come to that conclusion, I think that's actually going to end up way better. Yeah, I like that. So right here, we go if not asset dot player moving. We'll set all this up, right? And then we'll set it to true. Yeah, so now there's a slight one issue remaining. Other than that, we're pretty Gucci, which is we need more checks than this. So it needs to be less than animation end. But it needs to be greater than animation start, right? Okay, good. Not cycling the other. Animations. So I think then there we go. Perfect. Just gotta put the other ones in. That's it though. Nice. I'll definitely refactor this to take up less space. But we're sort of sketching things out right now. So I'll keep it as simple as possible for the time being. Don't overcomplicate it if you don't have to. Yeah, so animation start and animation length, frame, start, moving. Everything else remains the same, so it's going to be really nice actually. to sort of functionize this and bring it all down. We're not right. Yeah, we need to. These all also need to, as well as set in the idle state. They need to set it as not moving as well. Like this. I really appreciate, by the way, that we actually have been getting a couple of people stop by these really casual programming streams. Because, you know, I've really genuinely just been, you know, getting stuff done. But I just kind of combination of you know, feeling compelled to share it because I think we've been working on some really cool stuff, and also like our long-term plan, right, is just consistently you know, share stuff like progress on making the game, because hopefully when it's done we might get a few more people interested in playing it. This is actually shaping up to be really nice and really smooth. No weirdness at all, and you kind of start spamming buttons and that. It's looking really good. Yeah, I mean, I also, it's been a while like since I've actually posted any videos on this channel on YouTube and stuff, but I am streaming on YouTube and Twitch at the same time for anyone that doesn't know as well. But anyways, you know, it's a combination of like, I really genuinely enjoy. Oh, I should never have auto formatted this bullshit. We'll ignore that for now. I really enjoy like dev content in general. Like it's something I'm passionate about. Yeah, it's because of this. But also, you know, when I started learning game development, I just remember how ridiculously hard it was. And nowadays, with streaming and just the way things are with content and whatnot, you know, whilst I think it provides potentially additional pitfalls for new people, like I definitely would like to help some people that are really new to it, at least. But I'm very serious. I just did it automatically again. I'm very serious about this game being the best work I've ever done. Very serious. Awesome. Looking really good. We'll definitely reduce the size of this code into like a tiny little function when we're done. But I don't care about doing that on stream. Boom. That's really nice. Definitely gets a little weird if you're holding down one button. Because, yeah, I wonder what... I wonder what we could do about that. This is such a big deal for just like the game feel of just like all of this animation responding correctly. Like how you would expect, no matter how weird your inputs are. I think what we need... I wonder if we could actually reset the moving variable when a new key is pressed as well. Where did I learn to code? It's a long process, to be honest. Officially, I I learn at university, but I don't have like a computer science or anything to do with programming or computing or anything like that. My degree has nothing to do with that. Basically, I at university was studying music technology, and I studied music for many years, and I started doing in college straight out of high school. Well, I started studying music when I was even younger than that, when I was a tiny little kid. But when I went to college, first of all, before going to university, like for whatever reason, I immediately became more interested in where technology was being used, and there was always, for any sort of music diploma or degree that I did, there was always like a way to focus on the technology. There was always like a class on that, basically a module or whatever. And so I kind of like, I was starting out there all the way through doing like a bachelor's and a master's degree. I kind of like kept specializing more in a technical field. And by the time, it started out like when I was literally kind of went to like a sort of performance college, but we studied like studio work, basically working in the studio. So I went to study music technology so I could focus on all of that tech. And then doing a music technology degree, we learn like how DAWs work, and there was opportunities to learn how to make your own plugins for DAWs, as well as ways of doing performance with sort of digital software, music software that you kind of made, but in the music tech world, it's something that's a real niche that people outside of it don't know about. But there are all of these tools for kind of like making your own sort of music software or applications that it's all graphical programming environments, just like little nodes that you drag around and stuff like that. It's some light scripting, but not writing, text code. But you still are learning some programming, so that stuff, right? And then I sort of specialized into that even further. So it led to do more of that. And ultimately, because of that, on the master's degree, it did involve doing more of the same, mostly just graphical programming environments and stuff like that, but doing some Python. And so that's sort of like officially where I learned to program, was actually the most bizarre shit ever, like literally using C sound in Python to script single voice syllables out of a vocal synthesizer. Really weird, like not conventional start at program whatsoever. But I always wanted to learn game dev. I always wish I did it. I just thought I couldn't do it for whatever reason. I thought I wasn't like equipped somehow. It's beyond me, seemed too hard. And when I was at university studying that and learning Python, my best friend is a developer. He mostly does sort of like web and app stuff in the marketing world. And we were living together at the time, and so I showed him some of my work just to ask if I was doing it right, basically. Because obviously this is like my first, attempt at like real programming, quote unquote. And I showed it him and he laughed and was like, yeah, this is, it's perfect, basically, it's spot on. And he basically said, like, the funny thing is, like, everything is just this, you know what I mean? I had no idea at the time, really, because it wasn't, like I said, the setting wasn't like computer science or something, or even computing or any kind of degree to do with really learning how to be like a dev. It was very abstract in terms of like, it was literally learning enough Python scripting to do what you wanted to do musically and creatively is kind of weird. And so, yeah, he was just like, basically like all software is just this. And we're literally just talking about like, I had to create a script that uses, use different data types and, if statements and for loops and while loops and stuff, all the basics of stuff of like day one kind of programming. And he was just like, everything's just this, And I was like, wait, what? And so after doing that degree, I always, with all the music tech stuff as well, like I took it way too far. Like we did like mad stuff on my undergraduate, because I was just obsessed with it. I love that side of it. Like on my undergraduate, when I proposed like what my final major project was gonna be, the professor's response was literally, "Oh, you're supposed to stand on the shoulders of giants, Nick." Which I just thought the guy was a dick, and I think I called him a dick multiple times. So he basically advised me not to do it because it was too crazy, and I ignored him, did it anyway. And that resulted in him not being able to mark my work and having to talk to somebody else at the university who did more of that stuff. And we made like a prototype of an instrument that you basically performed by using Xbox Kinect at the time. So it's like pretty mad very over ambitious what we're doing at the time. But after going through all of that education, it gave me the confidence. It made me realize, oh, actually, I can program. I can just learn, basically after doing that master's degree where I actually learned, I did a little bit of Python. It gave me, it made me realize maybe I could do it. And so after that, I thought, oh, let's try and figure out how to make a game. And so, yeah, it was that kind of gave me the confidence to just try it. And so it's all just mostly self-taught, really. Like my actual education is so minimal. Everything I do is completely just actually getting things to work, to just do like real things. I'm not like, never ask me to use all of the correct words and the terminology and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I ended up learning how to make games in my spare time, whilst working on a PhD proposal at the time, because I wanted to continue specializing in all of this weird stuff that I was doing with music tech wise. And I ended up getting into using Game Maker because I bounced off all the different engines. And basically what I did was I wrote a blog about learning how to make games. This is a really long time ago, by the way. This is like 15 years ago or something like that. It's a really long time ago. And so I wrote a blog about the experience. And basically from writing that blog, I got asked to, I was working on a couple of different small game projects, and at the time to get on Steam, it was way harder to get on Steam, but my plan was to try and get a game on Steam. This was sort of, I think, either around the time of Steam Greenlight being brand new, or I think it was before that, I think. But that was my goal. And because this blog was doing the rounds amongst the people just that I knew, really, and like a few others, like just tiny amount of viewership online, I ended up being asked to come into some company that was just getting into making games. That was like some affiliate marketing agency that had these like voucher websites and various different ventures in the world of like dev, and they wanted to get into making games, and they already had started, and they asked me to come just to talk, and I thought, best case scenario, maybe I can get a bit of freelance work making like Candy Crush clones or something. And I ended up being offered like a permanent position, like running the games department, because it was never really an interview. Like it was just a casual conversation, and then after the conversation, it was like, are you up for coming and taking a look at some of our projects and like seeing what you think? Maybe you can help with some technical problems. You know, we've got a couple of guys and they're having a lot of technical problems. And so I ended up, there's a couple of different engines, a couple of different frameworks or whatever that they would been making stuff in. They'd not really settled on everything, so everything was done differently. And there was like people that were interns basically doing it, I believe, at the time, or stayed on after an internship or something like that. And those guys were just, you know, they maybe done some sort of diploma in computing or something, but basically I had to look at every project had some major technical issue they were struggling with, and I had to help them fix it. And I think pretty much everything I suggested fixed it. And so then I just ended up getting a job making games and running the games department there, which, to be clear, mostly meant I made my own shit for the company entirely on my own with an artist, but was asked to sort of like pitches to companies, or like regularly check up on the other guys. If they needed help, they'd ask me, or, you know, we'd sort of like check in and take a look at what they were doing and help at it all and stuff like that. And so I did that for a few years, and that so basically is like I did game dev professionally for a few years, and then after being made redundant, because, you know, nowadays it's like normal, right, that everyone gets laid off in the games industry. At the time I didn't think it was, but because I had no idea what it was like. I never went back to doing it professionally. I thought it's always just remained something I never did want a job working for somebody else. Like I said, I thought maybe get some freelancer was up for that. And so I've only ever done like content creation and stuff just independently since then. But but this is really the first time that I've decided like this is gonna be like a proper commercial thing, like since then, because I learned so much doing all of that, and it was a great experience in many ways, but I feel like I was never able to make anything good due to like so many restraints working for somebody else. And this is really just me saying like, right, I don't care about time or budget or anything. I'm going to take my time with it, do it in my spare time on the side. And when it's done, but the focus is making something really good. So yeah, I've been doing dev stuff for a long time, but for the last, like, for the most of the time, you know, I could have literally gone periods of like a few years here and there not even writing, like doing any dev. It's been sporadic since then. So yeah, I'm not necessarily an expert by any means, but I do have a lot of experience professionally and also just on my own projects. These days, it's like I've been doing game dev stuff like this, just in different programming languages without engines and that, because I'm over it using engines mostly. Not 100% on that, but and I end up making like a lot of dev tools for myself, When's your game going to release? I have no idea, to be honest. I was thinking that it'll take me a few years. But since I started this recent rewrite, I'm starting to think it might be able to be sooner. So we'll just, but I haven't announced anything official yet because I think it's too early to say. Because the problem is, it's like I'm not working on it full time. You know what I mean? And I do sometimes wonder, like, because my main gig is like I'm a YouTuber, but I make like gaming content on my YouTube. This is my alt channel. Like Nick Rawcliffe is my main channel on YouTube, and that's like my main thing. And that takes up a lot of my time. But you know, when I'm working on this, I do sometimes wonder, like, I don't know, like, I don't like crowdfunding for games, but hypothetically, I don't think I ever would do it because I don't like crowdfunding for games. But I do sometimes think, like, oh, well, I really feel I'm onto something with this game. Like, if I did do some sort of crowdfunding, maybe I could work on it full time, and maybe that I should do that. But I don't know. I think I'm going to keep doing it in my spare time. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Let's try. If we go to import. Yeah, let's try this. We may come to immediately regret this. Yeah, I know it's a good point. I mean, I'm like, I'm really passionate about game dev. Like, I lived and breathed it when I did it professionally. The reality is, though, that like doing it professionally and doing that job like almost killed me. I laugh, I guess, for, I don't know, coping. But I was super mega. I'm like this. I ended up with like so many health issues and all kinds of stuff. I was so fucked up for the experience of doing that. And it's like, you know, like it's just, it wouldn't be like that if it's just me. But it was like traumatizing, the job, like, and it put me off dev for such a long time. And then like getting back into it again, all over again, and just realize, just like, I kind of just, it's just started to feel like I do really know how to make games, you know what I mean, in sort of any context. And I've made loads, worked with quite a lot of games, and it just started to feel like it's wasted knowledge, you know what I mean. I'm wasting the fact that I can do this, and it's been so awesome and revitalizing to do a passion project. And it's just made me like realize how I really, really love this shit. I love it so much, and I'm really passionate about it. And this game in particular means a lot to me for a lot of reasons. And I just started to feel kind of like, when I die, I want to leave a good game behind. You know what I mean? And that's all I really care about. So all of the kind of like bullshit you have to deal with when you're doing it for like officially for work and for money and stuff, it's sort of like ignoring that. I love it. Yeah. Oh wait, no. Oh no, we can't do that. We need to do... Ah, fuck. Thanks, bud. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny, like, as you know, I told the story before of how I got into doing this stuff, and like, for me, I definitely am not the normal game dev, you know what I mean, or any dev for that matter. I came at things from music background, and for me, the thing I love about it is like I've always been somebody that's really creative. Like as a little kid, I was always making little pictures, making weird little pieces of music, playing different instruments, writing stories, and all of these things. And you know, I went to university for all these things, so some of the for many of those things, and so I'm quite good at all sorts of different things like that. And what appeals to me the most about doing game dev is that I get to be I get to use all of the different creative skill sets. I feel like it's where I get to be the most creative, because like I get to make my own music and own sound effects, and like I literally studied how to do sound design and music. Like most indie game devs aren't in that situation. You know, I get to write the story, I get to do the art, you know what I mean? And I happen to love the programming side so much so that I would rather just kind of hand roll most of the game instead of being some annoying GUI of a engine. And so that's why I like it, is because I just get to be creative and do all these different things. Like for years I was so immersed in like music production. No, it's great. It's good to have someone to talk to. I appreciate it, mate. You know, and like when I was doing music production all of the time, when I was studying music for university, it's like every single day I was like writing and recording and producing music, and I loved how that made me feel. It was like being really immersed in the creative process, sort of being in the zone or whatever the whole time was really satisfying. But game dev is that on steroids. It's way more of an intense of a sort of thing to be immersed in. Like when you're creating a piece of music, you know, there were tracks that the longest I ever took on something was like a year, but that's ridiculous. Most of the time it's like a day or a couple of days. But with music, it's like, so with game dev, it's like something you could be immersed in forever, you know? Like, could be years on one project, you know? And I actually kind of like that. Are you doing live stream every day? Nah, because I don't work on the game full time, it's like I like to, and obviously I think it's important that like most, if not at least just a lot of the work, I think it's better to do off stream, because you just think. It's hard to think straight on stream sometimes, and I just like to really focus. But I tried to stream like a good amount, like of the time that I'm working on the game, but because it's not a full-time thing, I'm not working on the game every day, and so therefore I don't stream it every day. So for the streams, there is no schedule, unfortunately, because I just don't really. I never really know when I'm gonna be focused on it. But yeah, I do have a Discord where I post all the stuff to do with like content, where I announce that I'm doing these streams. I did create a Discord just for Owlface Games, but I haven't been using it. Maybe I should. Anyways, yeah, what I was thinking is, what we actually need is to do like if raylib is key pressed, wait, where did I remap my pipe to? I don't remember. Wait, where the fuck did I do with pipe? I don't remember. I totally rebound everything on his keyboard. There we go. In fact, let's just do this. That doesn't really work, does it? Kind of. There we go. Still doesn't really work. Yeah, I think as I progress with the development of the game, I'll become more structured about it. It's kind of early days at the minute. Nah. This is not the way. Thanks, man. Have a good one. This is really good. There's no need to get hung up on this. It's working awesome. But it needs solving. Basically, the problem is, so it works awesome, right? Up and down, left and right, whatever. Exactly how you would want it to work. The problem is, if you start if you're already holding a button down and you start holding the other one, which is kind of what you want to be able to, it just sticks on whatever the last one is. Which is a classic issue. We should actually, if we just make this into a switch, will that not just fix it? How do we do that though? Actually, I said about making this into a switch or something, didn't I? To start refactoring this now, because with this part, is the same for everything, right? So what we really should do is let's just create another little block here. We just do like if assets dot player moving. Right. Everything else can just kind of go. And this is basically just animate. And then what we do is we just make this into a function. Sync current animation, something like that. Right. And then we just have start animation and it's float 32. And then we'll do this. Start animation. And then instead of this, we do... What's up, Linux? Thanks for the stream. Hope you're doing good, dude. I'm gonna have to go get some dinner soon. So I just realised I was only planning on streaming for a few hours. Sure, feel free to ask a question. No need to ask. It's almost always a troll when the people ask permission to ask a question. Nice. That's good. Right, one thing I need to do to test something is try this actually. Don't know if you are the right person to ask, but I'm a senior student in computer science with a 3.9 GPA. But even though I understand the theory, I feel like I can't put in application. Any tips are giving me a roadmap to follow? I could help a little with that. Although, I'll tell you where I'm coming from with these things. And the funny thing is, my perspective is coming from a way different place, but actually, weirdly, I think it might mean I actually do have a useful perspective for you. I was considering starting with front-end web development. Okay, so you know, the funny thing is, I am the complete opposite type of person. I have little to no formal education in programming or computer science. Literally, I got taught day one programming of like Python scripting. I did not study computer science. I didn't study anything to do with development whatsoever. I have learned development just by doing it and figuring it out on my own, and was still able to find a job doing it professionally, doing game dev stuff. My number one piece of advice to anybody is you need to just make stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is. Definitely do not start thinking that everything you need to do needs to be sort of like commercially viable or even for the public. But you need your own little projects, even if it's just hobby projects that never go anywhere or never, you know, see any eyes. Now, it's nice to do things that, you know, people will see, because feedback's important, but honestly, it's way less important than you just getting practical experience. It sort of doesn't matter where you start if you're really interested in front-end web dev. That's great. Go with that. I would advise you to just follow whatever you're passionate about. So if you're really interested in that, create a little side project and just try and do something on your own. You need to just start doing stuff. Like, put aside your education and the idea of a career for a moment, because in the real world, you know, those things matter for like life shit, right? But in the real world, like, people just care if you can really make things. The world is filled with people with lots of experience or lots of education, but like finding people that actually can just make stuff and be practical about it is a whole other thing. Once you get to the point of being somebody that can just make stuff, being somebody that understands all the theory like yourself is going to be an advantage. You know what I mean? So you are in a good position, in a good stead. You're going to be able to be way ahead of me when I started just trying to figure out how to make things. So yeah, just find something you're passionate about and don't think of it as a portfolio piece or, you know, a way to get a job or to further your education. It should be a project you just want to do because you're passionate about it. You know, that's the real shit when it comes to being a dev. It's just like, if somebody is ever asking the question, why are you making that? They don't get it. Like, that's not a real dev to me. Like, you should just be so into it that you'll want to just do it. You know what I mean? So find something you're passionate about and just try and make it. Like I said, could be a cool little website, cool little game, whatever. You know, whatever you're interested in. App, tool, development tool, educational tool, or, you know, maybe just something silly because it's just funny, or, you know. But that's the most important thing. Like, I know lots of people that don't have side projects because they're just busy working all the time, and I totally get that, because if you're somebody that's booked up for dev work all the time, then that's great. It means that you're good, right? But I kind of think it's best to always have these projects. It doesn't matter if you're new, or or you have some big time job, like always having something that you're tinkering on. So you're always gaining that practical experience in, you know, all kinds of different areas. I think it's crucial. Like personally, you know, I've been working on this game on and off for about a year in various different states, mostly just design. But just like not full time, just in my spare time. And throughout the process, you know, I've learned so much by just getting passionate about like figuring things out. Like for example, you know, I got sick of looking at different color schemes whilst making the game, so I made my own Neovim color scheme. There's specific functionality that I wanted in Neovim that wasn't there, so I made a Neovim plugin for it. I, you know, got super into just working in the terminal all the time, but there was certain ways of sort of like running the same tasks and managing build flavors and stuff that was pissing me off, so I just made my own tools for managing build flavors projects and creating task lists that can be ran from the terminal instantly and stuff like that. And I've learned a million things because of that. I've made a project for classes, like an airport booking system in C++, or an election website in HTML, CSS, PHP reading from a database. But I have a senior project where me and my partner suggested to make a mobile app, but I don't have a clue where to start. Not knowing how to start makes me feel that I'm falling behind. So is the main issue design? Were you saying that you don't know where to start? Are you not knowing where to start because you guys aren't sure what the design of the app is? Or are you guys falling behind because you know what the design is, but you don't know where to start within the structure of the application? I think the way that you're feeling, by the way, I think it's like super common. I have my experience. I felt like that at university all of the time, even though I didn't do programming. I think that's just a thing about being a student in general. I always felt like I was falling behind, whether I was or I wasn't. But when it comes to not knowing where to start, you know, like if it's from a technical perspective, like I also have gone through this whole thing of like making, working on all kinds of big projects and then just like feeling like if I had to handle it from the beginning, I wouldn't know where to start. But just doing lots of really small little projects, is what breaks me out of that. Like to this day, if I'm feeling like rusty on something, I will literally just like, I may even just do this. Like I have a test folder right in it right now. Is actually, it's kind of funny, is it's figuring out what I wanted the infrastructure of like a large Odin application. But something I would do is that I might come in here and literally just start creating the very basics of you know, anything really, just to practice. I'm not sure how to start meeting with tech to use like Flutter or React Native, what backend to use, system design. Right. Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to like, let's go through things individually. When it comes to like picking tech, basically, the trick is to just pick one arbitrarily. If you have analysis paralysis or decision paralysis, just pick any and just start. Personally, the way I like to do things is I'll look through the documentation and I'll look at, I need to see some code examples to see what it actually looks like in application. And I just see what appeals to me. Like, so many things, right? I think there's a lot of weird stuff in the dev world in terms of people get told sometimes. People sort of make out like there's so many things are so standardized. You have to use this, you have to use that. But like most of the time it's kind of bollocks. You can do things your own way. What I like to do is like, look, if you end up in like some corporate scenario, right, and you're working with some massive business, they'll have guidelines. You don't have to make those decisions anyway. These things hypothetically would matter. Like if you're freelance and you're handling sensitive information for a certain company, a lot of these decisions are going to matter, right? But that's not really dev. Like, it's like whatever. Like, you just go by whatever. In that scenario, the rules are going to be dictated to you in some way, right? So you don't have the decision to make. In your scenario where especially you're just learning, or it's a personal project that you're doing for yourself anyway, what I would like to do is I like to go through all of your different choices for your tech that you might like to use, find out what the dev experience is like, watch some videos of people working with it, look at all the practical examples, look at some code on GitHub of examples of projects built with it, and figure out, does this resonate with you? Do you like the look of this dev experience? Does it seem like something you would enjoy using? Or does it seem like something maybe you feel this is easier for you to understand for some reason? You just can internalize this particular framework, whatever, better, and make the decision based on that. And if you can't make a decision based on that because you're just not sure, just pick one arbitrarily. That would ultimately be my advice. Tin Can Vev, thanks for the follow on Twitch. I appreciate that, mate. Oh shit, Odin, let's go. Hell yeah. Odin hype, I like to see that. What's up? What's he called? Broken Umbrella Games. Shout out. Why am I in this code base again? I actually don't remember. That's not what we're currently working on. What was the other thing? Yeah, if you can't figure out, I'm working on my game right now. I recently decided to do a rewrite in Odin, so it's very early days in the game anyway. But I'm just started making my game in Odin this time instead of C, because I'm starting to prefer it. Yeah, so if you can't make a decision about the tech based on developer experience because you're just not sure, just pick one and just stick with it. Honestly, like, you'll end up learning lots of different sort of, frameworks and libraries and stuff anyway. Don't worry about it. You ultimately need to learn how to use all kinds of different things. It's not good to just be only using one language, one framework. You don't really want that anyway. What was the last thing that you asked? Sorry, we had a computer science student in distress we're trying to aid. What was the last thing you said? I forgot now. Back end, same thing applies. System design. Again, the system design thing, it's honestly hard for me to say, suggest anything. I guess you need to just do your own research on that, or just like honestly just like practically going through like what happens in what order and just making things in that order is a good place to start. Don't overcomplicate the system design. Just do it. Just make it work in the order it needs to work. No, it sounds ridiculous to say, but like bad system design usually comes from trying to anticipate a million different possibilities that you think might happen. And the reason it winds up being bad is because like a huge percentage of the time, those things don't actually happen. I will say though, as somebody that has no formal education in anything to do with computer science or dev, and it's just entirely been just me just trying to make shit on my own, that's like even just ended up leading to jobs and stuff. Like, it's scary to me, the idea that they haven't taught you that on your computer science degree to begin with. Anyways, hopefully that was all encouraging and not disheartening. Right, where were we? We're just implementing animations right now. And I'm happy with it currently. We've just got one typical bug. That it's one of those things I feel like I've solved a million times. But I'm just not sure how I want to handle it. You feel like I listen to your spirit? Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome to hear. You're welcome. Very welcome. You want to see something kind of cool? Yeah, so right now, this is our game window, right? With our little character. If I go into here, all of the art and stuff for the game, like how this is, how all this works. Alright, let me just check something real quick. Yeah, this can go now. But yeah, basically, this project is massively inspired by me making Game Boy games in Game Boy Studio. And as somebody that, like, everything that I do is, like, been programmer art, The only time I've ever made games that look decent is when I worked with an artist. You know, I do try and brush up on my pixel art from time to time. I've been getting better over the years. But one time I made this one Game Boy game for a game jam. And I wound up getting like maximum score in every category in terms of like design and art and music might not have even been one, I forget, because the music was sucked for the game, so it can't have been one. But anyway, as somebody who were like just making the assets is always the hardest part, I was so grateful and happy that people actually liked the art style. And I really felt like the reason why it didn't look like completely incredible, to be clear. What is the site called? Yeah, you can actually see like my brief history and public information of my games and stuff on archive.owlface.games, but this was it right here, right? People really liked how it looked, and I felt like to be like, this is a Game Boy game, to be clear as well, just for there's a lot of the way that it looks is because it's a Game Boy game, but I really felt that the reason why I was able to do like a better job with the visuals in this game, I think there's a video or something. Is it running on the Game Boy there? The whole design document and everything that you had to submit for the game jam is on the website. But I really felt that the reason why I was able to do a better job with the visuals, as someone that, you know, always struggles with pixel art and whatever, I felt a huge reason why was, number one, the limitations of the Game Boy, right? So immediately it was like, oh, maybe I just make Game Boy inspired artwork for my pixel art games anyway. And number two was the way that color palettes and color is handled on the Game Boy Color, and how that translates in GB Studio. Because in GB Studio, it works the same on any, like on the Game Boy in general, like all the sprites are just the default Game Boy color palette. So what actually happens is the sprite is really just all those shades of green, and you can basically assign you know, entities and tiles a certain color palette, which, you know, can only be 4 colors. It's just a limitation of the Game Boy. Now in GB Studio, you know, you could have a bunch of different color palettes and have each tile be a completely different combination of 4 colors, and that also works on the Game Boy as well, obviously. But it made me think, like, I think part of the reason why playing this on 4K on my Mac Mini over Wi-Fi is not doing great. I think my internet's kind of shit at the minute. I think the router needs resetting. But anyways, I think part of the reason why the visuals was pretty good. This was like a week or something I made this in. I think it's to find control of the color. All these visual restrictions are one thing, but the fact that, you know, you could literally just run the game and then go, oh, I don't quite like how the grass looks in this place. And then you just bring up the palette system in GB Studio. How am I streaming if my internet's so bad? I think it really is just a Wi-Fi signal on this little Mac Mini in the corner. Yeah, the fact that you can just run the game and then find that color palette and tweak that one shade of green or whatever, allowed me to just make better choices when it came to the colors, and it, you know, created like a more cohesive visual style. And so at the center of, you know, sort of the game engine, whatever you want to call it, has always been this idea of trying to replicate that. So basically, the actual sprites that you see, right, like this is the sprite sheet that we're looking at right now, they all start out like this, and it allows me to do, you know, several different things. Like, for example, you know, if I don't know, let's say we wanted to like add some sort of headgear, right, to this character. Do this, and what I actually have set up is a script that will actually bake those changes into a new set of sprites instantly. Now that also means that if I actually just find the palette, we can make really quick changes. Like if we just wanted to, you know, have this weird dark color, that's it, creating all the assets like that. We can do that. So I've gone through a few different iterations of this, and this is like what I'm the most hyped on right now, is that we're not actually using a shader or doing a palette swap or anything like that in game. I have done all of those things before, I've done various versions of it. This is literally a Ruby script that is pulling in all of these palette files, pulling in all of these sprites, and doing a color swap, and then generating the actual sprites for us. Which I think is freaking awesome. We need to close this one. So it's just generating the images. And the reason why I'm finding this approach way superior is it keeps the game code really simple. Like, why be doing like extra compute and stuff just to be doing a palette swap that's for dev process? You know what I mean? When we're talking about handling 8x8 or 16x16 sprites, it actually makes way more sense to just load you know, the additional image, you know what I mean, that's teeny tiny, than it does to be overcomplicating the code. But like I said, that's not why I did it. I did it because I just feel like, just creatively, the way working within those limitations worked out for me. I just feel like it actually yielded better results for me personally. So yeah, it's something I'm super hyped on. All right, guys, I really need the bathroom. I haven't had dinner. I really need to eat. So we're gonna wrap this stream up. So one thing that we need to do is we need to go here, delete this to-do comment, because we actually have implemented what we wanted to do in this to-do. And I'm not sure where this actually needs to happen. If it's, I think it's probably in input. We'll create a to-do for the next session. Fix bug. Actually, we could use the bug keyword, I guess. Fix bug when holding one direction and pressing another doesn't change the animation. And then we're going to create an issue out of this comment, and it's going to add the issue number to the to-do comment. And then I'm going to search my issues, make clear move. Yeah, okay, we need to resolve issue 2 because we actually did that when we do this commit. So we'll closes to implement directional animations. Boom. Right. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching today's stream. I love it that when I do these programming streams, once we get a few hours in, we start to get a few people showing up and talking in the chat. Really appreciate that, guys. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the channel. I'm making this game in my spare time. You know, I'm primarily a gaming content creator. Nick Rawcliffe on YouTube. youtube.com/Nick Rawcliffe if you don't know. But you know, I used to be a professional game dev, and I'm wanting to get a game out. I'm really passionate about making this game. So I'll work on it as much as I can, and part of the time I'm working on it, I'm trying to stream it. So we don't have a strict schedule for dev content, but if you are interested, there is going to be more. And I will be sharing the progress making my game in video and, you know, stream form as we go through the process. It might be a few years, honestly, but yeah. There's Alphace Games on YouTube as well, if you guys don't already know. I think, is it not set up for commands? Let me see. No? I don't remember if I ever set bots up or not on these channels. I guess not. But I think if I do have it here. Yeah, I just posted it in the Twitch chat if you're interested. We'll be streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and I'll be posting an occasional YouTube video. And I'll be sharing the, you know, progress making this game, and yeah, hopefully promoting it to people that are interested. Or if you don't care about any of that stuff and you just want some relaxing vibes, honestly, I've struggled. I know what I'm doing when it comes to gaming content. For dev stuff, I really struggled, but I think I've found what I want to do. Like, there's so many like ego-driven dev streams that's all about, oh, I'm such a fucking genius, I'm a guru, come to me for everything, whether it's mushrooms or Minecraft mods or whatever bollocks. But, you know, or just like insane Chad programmer, you know, whatever, right? It's operating system, something ridiculous, you know, mental. But like, I don't know, man. I've like a lot of the time, even if what we're doing is kind of crazy, I've been leaving it out the title and just saying it's a cozy programming stream, because that's kind of more my vibe. I don't like, whenever I try and make a big deal out of what I'm doing, it just attracts arseholes. So if you just want something relaxing, you like to listen to keyboards clacking, people programming in the background, that's going to be the vibe too. Alright guys, I need to go because I need to get some food in me and go to the bathroom, but thanks for watching.